Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you are watching my walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild for Nintendo Wii U and Switch. In the previous video, I showed in great detail how to get to Zora's Domain the first time, so I have multiple methods for that, so if you're interested to see how to do that, you can refer to the previous video. Now, this particular video is after we have arrived in Zora's Domain for the first time, and I'm going to be showing how to get all of the full Zora set so that we can swim really well, and that's all awesome. It allows us to swim up waterfalls, and then how to get up Polymus Mountain and get the shock arrows up there, and finally how to enter one of the Divine Beast, Vah Ruta. One of the things to know about that too, by the way, when you arrive at Vah Ruta the first time, this will make it so that the rain that is constantly pouring here in Lanayru will stop. So I actually highly recommend you at least unlock Vah Ruta. You don't necessarily have to do it right now, and I'm going to actually be saving that Divine Beast for later in the walkthrough. I'm going to be doing a bunch of other shrines and stuff first. But if you want to prevent the rain, I would recommend you come along with me, both so that we can get the full Zora set, as well as preventing rain in Lanayru so that we can do side quest and climb here easier. Now, as soon as you arrive the first time, I highly recommend you run forward and activate the Nea's Yohma shrine so that we have a warp point for Zora's Domain. This is a very useful warp point. We'll be using it quite a bit, but in particular, just so we don't have to run all the way here too, would be very handy. So do that first. Now, what you'll find is there is a diagonal incline here that has a bunch of boulders rolling past it. There is also a laser. You can just ignore it by just going over to the right. If you want to, you can stun that laser temporarily to deactivate it by using stasis on it. So this shrine's kind of fun because there's a couple different ways to do it. You can solve it by either using stasis or cryonis or some combination in between, and this allows you to move the block along, and then you can get it exactly where you want it to go, so we can get it in the slot. Now, just a quick note about this, you can use either cryonis or stasis to stop the block temporarily while you assess your situation and decide what to do. So if you're worried about the placing your cryonis blocks and the ball's running away from you, just switch to stasis really quick to stun the ball. This will stop its forward momentum, and then you can decide what you want to do and carefully place cryonis blocks in the meantime. Meanwhile, stasis wears out, and you're good to go. Now, generally speaking, the goal is to get it over here on this left side, and then at this point you can either push it over this wall and then push it over the next wall again by using a couple stasis blocks. Use one to prevent the ball from moving, and then use another one to push the ball over that diagonal wall so that it allows you to push it directly into the slot. So that's one method to do it. So you just push it over this wall, and then push it over the next wall using 3 total cryonis blocks. Otherwise, one of the things that I like to do is I push it over here and use the diagonal wall to my advantage to make a cup here at the end with one last cryonis block. One of the reasons why this is kind of cool is because it slows the ball momentum so that all I have to do is just break this last cryonis block, and it's right here on this flat edge. It's moving very slowly, so I have more than enough time to use stasis and then just knock it into the slot very easily. So whatever you want to do, this method just requires stasis. The other method would be pushing it over the wall directly when it's directly above the slot, and that's pretty easy as well. So that's how you complete the shrine. I didn't even bother to show the optional chest because it's so obvious. It's just really in plain sight. It's on top of one of those platforms, and you can reach it pretty easily. I think you can even reach it with cryonis, but otherwise you can hop down from one of the other upper platforms. You go to the very top, then go around, you can get to it. It's not a big deal, but it contains a Zora Spear, otherwise a Silver Scale Spear if you've completed enough Divine Beast, but both of those items are pretty bad, so I wouldn't bother with them. As a quick note about this warp location, you can grab the Fleet Lotus Seed and the Bright Eye Crabs that are around here, and they will reappear every blood moon. Now, I don't necessarily think this is like the best farming location in the world for this particular item. There are better places, especially if you're trying to go out of your way to get it, but if you're in the area, as long as you're passing through, I would highly recommend you get these. Fleet Lotus Seed are very valuable. You can make a lot of speed dishes with them, and they're awesome for that. So, just whenever you go to Zora's Domain, make sure that you grab the Fleet Lotus Seed in passing. So next I'm going to speak with Laflat, who is the secretary here, and she will give us some info about the Mipha statue that's here in the center of town. So speak with her if you wish, and then to continue on with the main storyline and complete the Reach Zora's Domain quest, all you have to do is go up either one of the nearby ramps and speak with Prince Sidon and King Zora inside the throne room up above. And quick note about that, by the way, King Zora is huge. Have you ever wondered about that? I always thought it was strange. I don't understand why he's so big, but a quick comment about that is, a lot of the people in this game are very old. They've been alive for over 100 years, so even though Link has been asleep this entire time, a lot of these Zoras, or at least the older ones anyways, were alive back then, so they're over 100 years old. But then again, we have the same thing with some of the Sheikah, and I think some of the other Hylians, the same thing, so they apparently have long lifespans as well. So maybe just all the creatures in the Zelda series have very long lifespans, and maybe that's what's going on. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, King Zora is huge, and he has been in pretty much all of the Zelda games that I know of anyways, and you ever wonder about that? I'm sort of wondering if maybe he's like a goldfish or a koi or something like that. You just keep feeding him, he just keeps growing and living longer. I know some koi, in the real world, are they've been alive through several generations of humans, and it's been running in the family to keep feeding these stupid things and keep them alive. So maybe King Zora is the same way, and he's actually really old, and that's why he's so big. So maybe those sneaky river snails that are just below in the kids' play area, or whatever, maybe they're just not sneaky enough. Alright, so once all the immensely satisfying dialogue is over with, we now have the Zora Armor, which will allow us to swim up waterfalls and swim really fast. Now, if you already have the Salvager set like I do, you do have the increased swimming speed. However, the Zora Armor will also allow you to swim up waterfalls, which is super handy. Fun fact about that, too, it's a really great way to save stamina, because there are points when you can, like, sail up into the air and then use that to sail up and make distance. It's kind of a fun little thing. I'll be showing that trick later on in this video, but it's pretty cool. Now, next we have the option of reading Mipha's diary, which is here in the throne room and it's just available for everyone to read, which I don't know about you guys, but that creeps me out. Like, I would hate that if I were her, just like the idea that, like, after I passed away, everybody would be reading my diary for generations. Like, ooh, such an invasion of privacy. I realize everybody likes her and everything, but man, it just, like, creeps me out. There's not really anything super notable to say about the diary. You can check it out if you want to. One comment about it that I think is kind of interesting is she talks about how she wants to hang out with Link after the war is over and everything, and she's really hoping to do that, and she's like asking him out on a date, basically, but she also, like, pleads with her ancestor Ruto, who is from Ocarina of Time, to give her strength to hang out with Link or whatever, to be brave enough to do so. And I find that kind of sad, because it's just kind of funny, because, like, Ruto did the exact same thing. She was very presumptuous in trying to imply, an engagement with Link back in Ocarina of Time, and it didn't end well for her. In fact, the ending of that is very similar to this game, too, so I'm sensing a pattern here. So, of all the people you should ask, I don't think that's the one you really want. I mean, honestly, if you're going to ask for business advice, you don't ask a broke person, you know what I'm saying? So, oh, poor Ruto. So once you're done messing around in the throne room, you want to head downstairs one level, and in the center of town, here next to the statue of Mipha, there is Muzu and Prince Sidon having an argument over Link acquiring the Zora tunic, or the Zora Armor, I should say. They changed the name in this game. Now, what you need to do in order to proceed is you have to currently be wearing the Zora Armor, and while doing so, speak with either Prince Sidon or Muzu to initiate this conversation. One of the things I think is sort of weird about this game is we have, like, or not necessarily required memories. You have main storyline memories, and then you also have the optional memories that you can unlock to get goodies, and they're completely different. So this one is one of the main story memories. However, it is entirely optional, just so you know. You don't have to do this. This is just for fun. So you don't necessarily have to do this in your game, because I'm doing it in mine. Whatever you want to do, you can just witness it here.
I was thinking, this reminds me of the time we first met. You were just a reckless child, always getting yourself hurt at every turn. Every time, I would heal you, just as I'm doing right now. I thought it was funny how, being a Hylian, you looked grown up so much faster than I did. I was always willing to heal your wounds, even back then. So if this Calamity Ganon does in fact return, what can we really do? We just don't seem to know much about what we'll be up against. But know this, that no matter how difficult this battle might get, if anyone ever tries to do you harm, then I will heal you. No matter when or how bad the wound, I hope you know that I will always protect you. Once this whole thing is over, maybe things can go back to how they used to be when we were young. You know, perhaps we could spend some time together.
I sort of find these memories, like, both kind of nice and kind of sad at the same time, because, like, I feel like we don't get enough memories to really know these characters well, but I feel like each one of these guys, except for Rivali, he can go away, but everybody else I kind of like. Mipha, I was like, oh, she's sweet, like, I want to see more of this girl. But I'm not really sure quite how I feel about the whole idea of a romance between them. But anyways, that is also implied here at this moment because Sidon makes the observation that the Zora tunic definitely... I keep calling it the wrong word. Zora Armor. The Zora Armor was definitely crafted with Link in mind, and it was made to fit a Hylian, which is weird because it was supposed to be a hero for the Zoras and everything, but it fits Link perfectly, implying that even though she might be cold-blooded, she has the hots for him.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure what Moose's deal is. I mean, here's, the way I figure it is, like, the whole thing with the Divine Beast has been bad for a long time, and Hyrule's dying. Like, I don't understand why he's just like, no, you can't have the Zora Armor. But I guess he's just really opposed to the idea of Zoras and Hylians getting along, I suppose. I don't really understand. I think it's a pride thing, or he just can't go against tradition and stuff like that. One other comment to make about that is I think he's not the priest or anything, but he's one of the main people in the throne room. I'm not actually sure what his role is in the hierarchy there, but I think he's been watching over all this stuff for over 100 years. I don't know how long. He's in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which is yet to release, by the way. Probably by the time this video releases, that game will already be out or something. We'll see. But anyways, that's the thing. It's been his responsibility this entire time. And he's been watching over and cherishing the memory of Mipha this whole time, too. So I guess it is kind of like a very personal, almost like an attack on him in a way, you know what I mean? Like, the stuff that he's been responsible for this whole time and is, like, just doesn't trust us to be having the same, like, honor and diligence in the whole thing, I guess, as he has shown, I suppose. On the other hand, he could just be a turd, so there's that. Alright, so at this point, the characters will then give us our next quest objective. In order to complete going to Vah Ruta, we need to gather 20 shock arrows. Now, they recommend that you climb Polymus Mountain nearby and hunt the Lynel there. You can either kill it, or you can sneak around it, whatever, but in that area, you can find a bunch of shock arrows. Unfortunately, these Zoras can't touch shock arrows, and those are required in order to enter Vah Ruta. So in order to do so, you can either just buy them from some of the other shops. I think they don't have them here in... they have ice arrows here, I believe, which that sounds like a bad thing for Zoras too, but they don't want to have shock arrows here. Anyways, you need to go buy shock arrows somewhere else. So one of the places you'll definitely have access to that is going to be the whatever it's called, the place in the corner. You know what I'm talking about. Lurelin Village, I have found the title. And the other place that has them too, by the way, is Korok Forest. So if you go to the little Koroks there, they will sell you shock arrows. They're like, hi, would you like something that will murder everything? They're just so cute. So anyways, you can either buy the shock arrows or you can go up Polymus Mountain and gather 20 of them. It's actually not that bad, and it does seem scary at first, but I'll show you how to do it really well, and it's fine. Alright, so with our next main objective in hand, we can now totally ignore it. So instead, you want to just keep going straight, exit Zora's domain, and over here, just beyond the waterfall, so you look on your map, you'll see the waterfall extending either way. What you want to do is hop down right next to it, and then just swim in the water, and then go through the waterfall itself. This will lead to a little cavern that has some rocks on it, which you can blow up with bombs, that contain a chest with a gold rupee, which is worth 300. Super awesome. This is a great thing. But I just highly recommend you only do this after you have the warp point here in Zora's domain. So, with that in hand, you want to warp back to Zora's domain. We have a couple more goodies to grab. So next, hop down just below Zora's domain. You can get back up using the nearby ladder, right, that's on the left of the video. See that? Ladder, right there. But anyways, just underneath Zora's domain, like right underneath where the Mipha statue is, there is a chest containing a silver rupee worth 100. I did show this in the previous video, but I'm just mentioning it again in case you didn't grab it. In particular, I was showing this chest on the way to Zora's domain. However, I didn't want to show the gold rupee before because I didn't want people to jump down so far. That's like much more of a pain to get up here after that using Cryonis. But anyways, next we continue on towards the northeast. There's a couple more chests we can grab. In particular, a little bit to the north, there is a chest containing some ice arrows, and there's also some ice arrows next to the waterfall nearby as well. Grab them if you want to. I think those are pretty optional. But next what you want to do is put on the Zora Armor and use it to swim up the waterfalls. To do so, you just swim into the water like, right below the waterfall, and then just press the A button and Link will just start swimming up. What's kind of fun about this is it doesn't consume any more stamina, so you don't actually waste any while you're doing it. I don't know about you guys, to me, this looks like it would be way more energy consuming swimming up a waterfall as opposed to just swimming in water. You're like swimming and you're like, I'm feeling the Wind Waker stats right now, and then meanwhile you're swimming up a waterfall and everything's fine. This is great. Like, man, I need a tunic like that. You could have tunics for, like, every day of the week, just doing different tasks. It'd be wonderful. Alright, so this little lake area, like, in between these two waterfalls right before you get to Toto Lake, is, in my opinion, one of the best places in the entire game to get Hyrule Bass, which are garbage. You don't want Hyrule Bass, except for right now, because we're going to be needing it to upgrade the Zora Armor here in just a little bit. It's, like, really cheap. It's one of the first things you need, and they're super easy to get here. They're super plentiful. I was mentioning that you can get a whole bunch along Zora's River. There is a total of, like, 20 Hyrule Bass all the way if you kill all of them. But this place is amazing. You can get so many of them. In fact, I think you might even be able to get all of your 15 you need for this entire area. Just be really careful not to bomb yourself, because I never do that. Now, in addition to the Hyrule bass that are here, there is a couple hardy bass as well, and those are very valuable. I will be showing you some great places to farm those later on. I wouldn't necessarily go here specifically for that particular ingredient. However, I will be showing some better places for that later on. So moving on, you want to go up the next waterfall. This one, again, just swim up to it and then press the A button while wearing the Zora Armor, and Link will swim up the waterfall. This is great. I actually think this is one of the coolest, like, simple, like, additions to the game. The one thing I find sort of sad is I wish it was more like a passive, so you didn't have to put on the Zora Armor every time. Like, I don't know, like in previous game we got a pair of flippers or something, and it was just great, you know? Those were all 2D games, I guess, but, like, I don't know why we can't just automatically have flippers equipped. It's kind of like equipping the iron boots in some games, but just have it be automatic in this. You're swimming. Okay, I'm swimming. It works. Poof. I just have them on. Magic flippers. So up ahead here in Total Lake, we have a whole bunch of tireless frogs. This is one of the better places to get them. Now, in general, I do think this is a bad enduring ingredient. You're way better off getting endura carrots. However, if you are wanting some frogs, especially if you're compendium, this is a guaranteed place to get them. I actually think overall, like if you're just looking for a guaranteed tireless frogs, the rocks just south of Zora's Domain is like the easiest place to get them. Just lift up like any of the rocks right there and you can get them really easily. Anyways, here in Total Lake, there is a chest that is under the water that contains the Zora Helm. Now, before you leave, there is a couple fish that are worthwhile a little bit to the north. There is some hardy bass, which are very valuable, and there's also a voltfin trout. Now, that one in particular is very hard to find, and I know a lot of you are struggling to get those for your Hyrule Compendium, so I would recommend that you get one here as long as we're in the area if you haven't got one already. I'm trying to point out all the locations that I know of that have voltfin trout, because I know it's one of the ones that people really struggle to find, so I feel like it's worthwhile. Now, here at the base, at the top of the waterfall, there's a chest under the water that contains a ruby. So you should totally grab that because that's valuable, worth a pretty decent chunk of rupees, which is awesome. A ruby for rupees. And then at the bottom of the waterfall, if you want, at the base of the waterfall, if you fall down, there is actually a chest under the water that contains a silver rupee, which is worth 100. We're going to work back anyways, it doesn't really matter, so you can do that if you like. Now, one more quick note before we leave, just because I think it's cool, is the fact that you can actually get to Zora's Domain from this waterfall right here. So you warp to, like, the Akala Tower, and then just go south until you reach this waterfall, and then you can just use Cryonis to climb the waterfall instead. You just keep hopping on the Cryonis blocks as they're coming out of the waterfall, just like steadily climbing up one block after another. And as a result, you can climb up here even in the midst of the rain because you're not climbing that high of a distance anyways each time. And as a result, you can just work your way all the way up to the top here to Total Lake. You can get the Zora Helm and then just sail south to get to Zora's Domain instead, and that's a way you can get here early, which is actually pretty fast, and you gain access to it very easily, and you completely circumvent going to Zora River entirely. You don't have to deal with Sidon or anything. You just like show up in the throne room. He's like, "Hey, buddy, thanks for making it." It makes me laugh. I don't know. So I don't think that's the most efficient way per se, but it is actually faster than you'd think. This waterfall is pretty tall, and yes, it's raining and everything like that, but you can totally climb it on Cryonis blocks really easily. And again, just to reiterate, I don't necessarily think that's the most efficient thing or, like, the coolest thing ever, but I do think it's fun you could even do it. Like, I just feel like I'm breaking the game, and I'm like, ah. Alright, so back in Zora's Domain, we still are not going on with our main objective yet. So, the first thing I want to point out is the fact that just underneath the throne room, there's actually the second best place in the entire game, in my opinion, to get sneaky river snails. I don't think these are particularly a useful ingredient for cooking. However, they are needed to upgrade the stealth set, so you can grab these if you want to. So if you're planning on upgrading the stealth set and you don't have a good place to farm these yet, then this would be a nice option for you. Like if you're coming to Zora's Domain anyways and you're getting the Fleet Lotus Seed right next to the warp point, and then you can grab these real quick, and then you can buy some arrows, whatever you're going to do. Like every time you come to Zora's Domain, you can just grab these real quick. It's just a nice cheap alternative ingredient for making some low-level, you can make some tier 3 stealth food using sneaky river snails if you want to. I think that the silent shrooms are easier to get in general, though, so just as a comment. But yeah, this is the second best place in the game. I actually will show you the best place in the game to get ingredients for that later on, but there's a super sweet spot for that, and we'll be doing that here actually in a couple videos, and I'll be showing the best place in the game to get sneaky river snails. Now next you want to go speak with Segan, who is a little bit to the south, and he's like just to the left of the throne room, and this bro is looking at a shock arrow here, and you can talk with him, and he'll explain that these Zoras can't touch these things. One of the things I think is kind of funny about this is the fact that they say that they don't like shock arrows, and the Zoras can't touch them, and it's awful. And yet they sell ice arrows here, which that sounds just as bad to me. They're like, well, you don't want to have poison, but let's set ourselves on fire instead. You know, it's kind of like that. I don't know. Just crazy to me. These guys have not played enough Pokemon. Anyways, our goal here is, what I recommend you do is actually take a picture of this shock arrow. This one is super easy to see, and I think this is one that people neglect to do. They don't even think to do this, but one of the cool things you can do is, because we have our upgraded Sensor Plus that we got from the Hatino Research Lab, is you can now set different objects to your sensor object, which makes them easier to find. Now, in a moment, we're going to be heading up to Polymus Mountain, and as a result, if you set it for your sensor target target ahead of time, it makes it a lot easier because once we arrive, you can then just find them right away, and you can find every single one of them as opposed to wandering aimlessly and probably missing a few. So as a result, we can get all of them. The next thing you want to do is be a total jerk and steal his shock arrow from him. So he'll yell at you for doing so. He was trying to do training to build up his resistances to shock arrows, although, like, Zoras are apparently very weak to shock stuff and everything, so I don't think that would really change anything. Sort of makes you wonder who the most cold-blooded person is here, this Zora or Link for stealing his shock arrow. Anyway, there is no detrimental effect for taking it, though. You should totally do it, because they are valuable and worth quite a bit of rupees. Alright, so we're ready at long last to head up Polymus Mountain. Almost. You want to go over to the left and speak with Laflat, who is here at the bridge leading out of Zora's domain off to the east, and she's right here right before you exit Zora's domain, and she explains that she's looking for a picture of a monster called a Lynel that is up on top of Polymus Mountain. But Lynels are terrifying. They have been in every single Zelda game. They're awful. Some of them, they look kind of derpy and stuff, but these ones are terrifying again, and they just murder you. So, we're going to go up to Polymus Mountain and see one, because we're suicidal. So there you go. Anyway, she is recommending that we take a picture of him, which that sounds safe, and then we can bring her the picture, and she will give us a reward. Now, as a quick comment, you can bring her a picture of any Lynel. It doesn't have to be the one up on top of the mountain, but I suppose that would be false advertising. Her whole reason for wanting it is so that she can show it to other Zoras and prevent them from wanting to, like, go exploring up there, like, being all arrogant or whatever, like, it'll be fine, I'm gonna go see it, who cares? But instead, she can show them a picture to frighten them off. So we're trying to encourage people to be afraid, I guess, is what we're here to do. Alright, so as a quick disclaimer, this is the point in the walkthrough chronologically when I had a blood moon, and then I left Zora's domain to go to Mijiro Shrine. So you can see my time is now like 3 a.m. It just changed. But anyways, that's because I cropped it out right here. But I had a clip in there where I went to the Mijiro and completed that shrine. I did show it in a previous video, and I was explaining at the time that what you want to do is just keep that in mind so that the next time you have a blood moon, you can rush there. Now, just so you know, the Mijiro Shrine, which is just south of like the Shayloya Shrine, and the Tabantha Stable, that shrine, you can go there anywhere during a blood moon night. So as long as it's anywhere from 6 p.m. all the way until, I think, at least 4 a.m., if not 6 a.m., like pretty early, actually, or 5 a.m. I think that's what happens when you use a campfire. It takes you to 5 a.m. Anyways, you can go to Mijiro at any point during that. So even after you have the red moon and it's like, shows the cinematic, and there's all the not sparklies, but you know what I'm saying, all the creepy malice floaties in the air. After the malice floaties disappear and the moon turns back to a white color, you can still go over to Mijiro and activate it, even though the moon's no longer red. It still counts it as a blood moon night, and you can still activate Mijiro at that point. So anyways, my point is, it's very forgiving. So if you're out here and you're adventuring and then you have a blood moon and you're thinking to yourself, oh no, I can't make it exactly at 12 a.m., don't worry about it, you're fine. You can go after that and you're totally fine. You have 12 hours of total time when you could possibly go to Mijiro to unlock it, so it's great. Anyways, I mentioned all that just to say, keep it in mind, go to Mijiro as soon as possible, whenever you have a blood moon, whenever it's convenient. Just try to remember so that you do it when it's available. Okay, going back to talking about main quest stuff at long last. So if you go over to the just east of Zora's domain, there is Mikau Lake and Lulu Lake, and which are both names from Majora's Mask, which, by the way, which is kind of fun. But if you use the Zora Armor to go up the waterfalls, you can ascend this mountain very easily. Now, just so you know, this is actually a similar elevation, Polymus Mountain is, to Toto Lake, where we just were to get the Zora Helm. So as an alternative, you could go over there, get the Zora Helm, and then just like book it over to the right, and then you can go up to Polymus Mountain and meet up with this Lynel there. Now, along the way through Mikau Lake and Lulu Lake, there's a bunch of hot-footed frogs, and there's a couple like hardy radishes, there's some sneaky river snails, which are all kind of meh, they're okay. So you can grab them if you want to. Now, once you finally get to the top of the waterfall, I would encourage you to take a picture of some of these shock arrows that are right here. They're really easy to see, so if you did not take a picture of a shock arrow of the one that is in Zora's domain, I would recommend you take a picture of this one and then set it to your sensor object so you can find them a lot easier. So once you finally reach the top of Polymus Mountain, we have death to look forward to. So this Lynel can be kind of scary, just so you know, though, this is one of the easier Lynels to fight, so it's not really that big a deal. Now, as a reminder, we definitely want to take a picture as soon as possible to complete Laflat's quest. This will lead to us getting the Zora Greaves, which is definitely something you're going to want. So what you want to do is take a picture of it. You can zoom in with your camera, by the way, which would be handy here. So what I'd recommend you do is hide behind one of the boulders, or these like rocky things, and then you can use the camera at a distance to try and take a picture of it. You should be able to get close enough where you can take a picture pretty well, and you can look in your compendium too to see if you have successfully gotten a picture of a Lynel to guarantee that it worked. If you're not sure, you can inch a little bit closer and get a really big picture of a Lynel to make sure that it works properly. In fact, too, if it says replace picture, then you know that you highlighted the Lynel close enough and you're good to go. So that's the way you can guarantee that it worked. Now, as a quick reminder, what I've been doing is I tend to try and delete pictures out of my camera as soon as possible when I add something to my compendium, just to clean up my camera and make sure I don't have any extra stuff sitting around. I like things clean, you know? But anyways, this particular picture you definitely want to hang on to because we need to hand it into Laflat, so don't delete the picture. This is your warning. Alright, so the first order of business now that we have arrived here and taken a picture is you want to go hide behind one of the rocks and save. Now, what I recommend you do, though, is hide behind one of the farther rocks. Now, the reason for this is because when you load your game, the Lynel will appear somewhere randomly on top of this hilltop, so it can actually appear right next to you. Now, if that happens, you can just load your game again, and it will hopefully appear somewhere else. But it does not reappear back where you last saw it, just so you know. Or, like, you know what I mean? If it was in a particular location when you saved the first time, it will not reappear in that same location. It doesn't keep its position. All the enemies reset when you load your game, in general. It's like the world is repopulating all the enemies that are still in existence, is what happens. And likewise, some enemies that may have dropped a weapon, for example, they will have the weapon back in their hands, for example, is one of the things that happens. So, that's just something to note. So make sure when you save your game, you save it far away, so you don't end up killing yourself when you load your game. Now, what I'm showing in this recording is running around with Majora's Mask. What Majora's Mask does is it makes it so that enemies don't see you or they just ignore you and stuff. So in this result, the result of this is that the Lynel will somewhat ignore us. Now, the funny thing about Lynel specifically is that those ones will actually attack you if you take too long. So they will, like, kind of ignore you at first, and then they'll get mad and attack you anyways. So the goal is kind of to, like, do hit and run, sort of, where you let it see you and, like, run around and get some stuff and then hide behind a rock again to break line of sight. Wait for a little bit until it loses interest and turns away, and then you can keep running again. Now, otherwise, it will just start attacking you like normal, and this can be kind of terrifying. So Majora's Mask isn't necessarily a foolproof plan, but it does work pretty good. I think that the chance of it detecting you and getting mad is actually much higher if it is closer to you, I think. I'm actually not entirely sure what causes this to happen. Anyways, if you do have it start shooting at you, all you have to do is just use some of that shock resistance. You should have, if you didn't use it along the way, we might have that level 2 electro resist elixir that Sidon gave us to us when we were in Zora River. So, spoke with him there, you could have that. Ideally, though, you'd have a tier 3 shock resistance potion, and you can just use that. As long as you don't get too close to it and you, like, dodge out of the way when it tries to rush at you, you can totally just run past all this stuff and just, he'll shoot shock arrows at you and it doesn't matter. One of the scary things to know about up here is that there's puddles everywhere, but also the fact that it's constantly raining means that when his shock arrows hit the ground, it will guarantee cause the area of effect, which will hurt you. So this is actually very dangerous to fight him here because he'll do a guaranteed 3 hearts of damage with just the shock damage alone. That doesn't even include the damage of the fact that the Lynel bows do a lot of damage anyway, so you have the physical damage on top of that if the arrows actually do hit you direct, which means they can do several hearts of damage depending on how much armor you have. So next I'm going to show you the sneaky method. Once again, you can load your game, as long as you're behind one of the farther rocks, then the Lynel should not appear, and the world will not populate him right next to where you are, so it should be fine. So I'm putting on the full stealth set, which means that I have level 3 stealth, so I'm really quiet, so I'm not making much noise, and as a result, I can walk through here very well. As a comment, I think you still make a lot of noise when you splash through puddles, so just trying to be careful about the puddles that are on the ground specifically, but other than that, everything else is pretty fine. Also, I'm not sure if you scare away, like, that boar that's up here, for example, if that can alert the Lynel to your presence, but anyways, the Lynel typically will just circle around the area going counterclockwise, and I don't think he turns back the opposite direction unless you make noise for him to inspect you. So as long as you don't get into his line of sight, you should be totally fine. As a result, you can just circle around this area, just running along behind him while you're not making much noise, and it should be just fine. Now, alternatively, of course, you can just eat some stealth dishes, which I have several in my inventory. If you've been following along with me, then I encourage you to do that as well. But you can make some level 3 stealth dishes, and honestly, most of those will last for like 12 minutes and 30 seconds, which is way more than enough time to get all the shock arrows we need. As a reminder, so you guys are going to have this completely memorized by the time you're done watching this walkthrough, the best place to get silent shrooms in the game is definitely Hickley Woods, which is just south of Kakariko. So if you want to make some stealth dishes as an alternative to wearing the stealth set, you don't have to go like get the stealth set and buy it and upgrade it and stuff if you don't want to. You can just get stealth ingredients. Although as a comment, like the amount of time you spend farming all the stealth ingredients, you could have just been upgrading the armor anyway, so whatever you want to do. Like, yeah, I realize it costs rupees, but as you'll find here very shortly, even in the next video, I think, I'll be showing how to make tons and tons of rupees. So just the small cost, the very slight cost of the stealth outfit is just not much at all, and it's not really a problem. So one last comment that's a little bit sad about the stealth option is the fact that a lot of these shock arrows that are in the trees, some of them are up high. You can climb them, but it's kind of awkward because it's raining and stuff. It doesn't really work that well. What you're better off doing is chopping the trees down, and the easiest way to do this is just to simply blow them up with bombs. However, this will, of course, alert the Lynel to your presence, so this can be a little bit awkward. You can just ignore them and just, like, whatever, or you can blow them up, or you can chop the tree down or whatever, but if you make too much noise, he will see you regardless. So, what you can do is try and save the trees in the middle in particular for last, because those ones are a little bit harder to get. Because you're, like, in the line of sight of the Lynel anyways. If you get all the ones, if you make a circle all the way around the area, end with the trees in the middle. So at this point, I was trying to sneak up the hill, and I was feeling nice and sneaky, but I ended up getting seen anyways, which is sad. Unfortunately, I did not. I was trying to get away from using the shock resistance, but now you can see what I was talking about, how it just, like, absolutely murders you. It's awful. So, put on shock resistance. I would just recommend you do it. Like, it's cheap. Like, I got all those zap shrooms earlier that you saw, and it was awesome. So, like, just do it. Just do it. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, this Lynel does a crazy ton of damage, so you need a bunch of armor and stuff. Actually, like, at this point, now that I've been seen, I probably should have swapped out of the stealth set. I was just trying to be fast and get out of here. But anyways, I was just feeling lazy, so I left it on. But my stealth outfit does not have as much armor as some of my other sets, so if I put on some different armor, I probably would survive this a little bit better, and it wouldn't have been quite as scary. But anyways, I went ahead and put on the shock resistance, because if it shoots shock arrows at this point, then I can survive, and it won't be that big of a problem. But I'm just working my way up the hill. Now, once you get past the Lynel, if you get far enough away, it will just finally abandon you and run away. So once that happens, you can get all the other shock arrows that are up against these trees here along the way as you work your way to the top. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in order to complete this main quest, we do need 20 shock arrows. Now, you should be able to get more than enough of that here, especially if you're getting every single one. However, as an alternative, you can just buy them as well. But just note that getting shock arrows is one of the requirements for the main quest. Now, once you have gathered all 20 arrows, whether that's from purchasing them or from getting them here at Polymus Mountain, then we can finally head to East Reservoir Lake, which is where Sidon will be waiting for us. So in order to get there, you can either come there direct and use, like, you can use the waterfall at Mikau Lake, and then just make a hard right, and you can get there. Otherwise, here at the top of Polymus Mountain, there is a sign here that says that you can dive from this point. In order to dive, you just want to run off it with the B button, and then just jump at the last moment, and then that will cause Link to dive. Otherwise, he does a regular jump, and it's sad. But anyways, the diving is cool, though. That's what you really want. You want the dive. So that's all we technically have to do, you know. We're done with everything we need to do here, so we can just go ahead and dive off the ledge and continue on towards Vah Ruta and meet up with Sidon. But you know what? This is an adventure game! I didn't climb up Polymus Mountain and get all these, like, armor upgrades and fancy weapons and royal bows and bomb arrows and all that stuff and stasis plus upgrades and food buffs and everything, and I didn't do all that stuff just to tuck my tail between my legs and run away. No way! We're gonna kill this guy, because it's time for murder. Probably like a royal bow or something. It just does good damage, single target. We can get those from Hinox super easy now. Otherwise, like a Forest Dweller bow is kind of like the only multi-target bow we have right now, which is kind of nice, but it does consume a lot of arrows. The idea with that is you just do headshots really, really close, and you can do a lot of damage, but I feel like it's better overall to just melee them in the face if you can. The elemental arrows aren't really super great against the Lynel. You can use like frost arrows to do a little bit additional damage, but it doesn't actually cause the freezing effect. What you can use that's really effective is Stasis Plus. That's amazing. So if you upgraded that ahead of time, like I did, it's one of the reasons why I recommended you upgrade that before we ever head to Lynel, is so that you have that in order to do this guy if you want to. Now, one thing you can do, though, is I'm right now trying to sneak up on this Lynel so I can do a sneak strike, because that's just kind of awesome. You can just start off. Now, as a reminder, when you do a sneak strike, it always does 8 times damage. So I'm starting out with the Royal Claymore, which is my hardest hitting two-hander, and I didn't make it there in time, which is sad. Now, one thing you can do that does cost a lot of stamina is you can get on top of the Lynel by getting up alongside it and then pressing A to mount him, and then you can just smack him from behind, which that sounds painful, I don't know. So far in the walkthrough, I haven't really talked too much about flurry rushes. I did show it during the, whatever that shrine is called in Kakariko. The Test of Strength tutorial shrine, I was talking about it in that one, but I haven't really been using flurry rushes very much, but they are very overpowered. In particular, I think flurry rushes are much more suitable to harder enemies. A lot of weaker enemies you can just kill in one shot anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But flurry rushes are amazing. You simply use L targeting and then jump out of the way in the appropriate direction to guarantee that you don't get hit. Now, this will kind of depend on what enemy you're fighting and also what weapon they currently have equipped. I think overall of the different Lynel types, the sword-wielding ones are definitely the easiest, but you'll have to dodge in different directions for the other weapon types that Lynels could possibly possess. So just something to bear in mind when you're fighting these guys. You know, we haven't seen Lynels in games in a long time. Like, a lot of the Zelda games that have Lynels are usually 2D games, so I was actually kind of surprised to have them here, but it made me happy because Lynels are terrifying. They're seriously terrifying mean, like, all the games that they exist in, they're awful. A Link to the Past, I think, is probably the easiest one, although they're scary in that one, too. But you don't really see them very often, but in a lot of the other Zelda games, it's an event. When you see Lynels, you're like, oh, no! And this game is no exception to that. Maybe a better way to say that is that in a lot of other games, you can just ignore the Lynels, you can run right past them. But this game feels like once they see you, it's kind of hard to avoid. You need to really be careful about them, you know? You can't just run past them very easily. So once you defeat the Lynel at long last, you can steal its weapons and its enemy parts that it leaves behind. Now, this particular one is just a red Lynel, which means it's a garbage one. Although if you're playing in Master Mode, you might have higher quality Lynels here, so thus they'll give you higher quality parts and weapons. Now, these weapons are generally speaking the better weapons in the game for the higher tier ones. Of course, these ones are kind of garbage, so you probably, if you're following along with me anyways, these are probably not very good for you. The bows in particular I want to point out because they are multi-arrow bows, meaning they shoot out 3 arrows at once. These are very useful for getting headshots, especially against like killing like some yellow Lizalfos, so you hit them in the horn, you do guaranteed crits on them, and you can kill them very quickly when you jump off of Red Lynel Tower, for example. It's a really nice place to use it. Now, this particular one, because it's a low-end one, is not as good as even the Forest Dweller bow that we have. And I can get those super easily now that we have a farming spot for them. So the Forest Dweller Spear is actually better right now than this is. Or Forest Dweller Bow is better than this Lynel bow. Blech. Gotta speak correctly. Gotta use that English. But anyways, so you can grab the weapons and stuff if you want. Probably these are not very good, especially if you've been following along with me. So this is just one of the ways of getting to East Reservoir Lake. You can also just take Mikau Lake and just go up that waterfall and take a right, and you can reach the East Reservoir that way. Also, just so you know, as long as we're here, there is a gold rupee that is in one of the pools, the top right of this area, so you can grab that if you want to. I sort of figured it wasn't worth it. I know I've been going out of my way to get them, but like, this one's just a little bit further. Or like, you know, the other ones we can warp back easily. I don't want to keep running back and forth here, so I just decided to abandon it. So I'm just continuing on towards the north so I can reach this this place where we can meet up with Sidon. So again, as a reminder, the only thing we really needed was just to have a whole bunch of shock arrows. So as long as you got some either from the top of Polymus Mountain or you purchased some earlier in the game with me, you can get them from the Korok Forest or Lurelin Village would be kind of the two places I have access to off the top of my head that have a whole bunch of shock arrows. You can buy a bunch of them for a bunch of rupees, and then you can come here if you did not get them from Polymus Mountain. But you just need at least 20 is what they recommend, and then speak with Sidon when you're ready. Now what'll happen is we can ride on his back, and he'll take us around Vah Ruta and put himself in danger, and we can attack this thing. I'm not really sure why he didn't do this before, or like why he didn't take us up Zora's River. Like, seriously, this guy is so lazy. We like had to run. He's like, hey, there's a bunch of enemies here. It's infested. It's awful. Here, go through this. But I suppose at one point, though, like another argument for that is that maybe proves that we're like strong enough to actually handle Vah Ruta. So if he just took us here on its back, then like that would just prove that we're not strong enough to actually handle it. So maybe it's just like proving ourselves. It's like getting the courage gems in any other Zelda game, right? But just as a quick side comment, you don't have to do this right now. I recommend you do, just because, and I'm not really even going to do the dungeon right now. I'm going to save it for later in the walkthrough. The reason I'm doing it right now, though, is because after you have unlocked Vah Ruta the first time, the game kind of like shoves you in this direction pretty heavily, and it's kind of blending your path. But after you've unlocked Vah Ruta the first time, then it stops all the rain in Lanayru. So I would recommend you do this right now. It just makes things a little bit nicer. Although, as a comment, though, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, you can still access everything even with the rain, so it's not like it really helps all that much. You just feel good. You're like, I hate rain, but it's alright. Now, I know what a lot of you have been thinking this whole time. You've been disappointed that we don't have Epona for this game, except through Amiibo and everything, but the truth is, we have an even better Steve for this game, and he's also kind of a, reddish-purpley color too, so it kind of works out. Now, the first trial we have to overcome is the fact that we have a bunch of floating Cryonis blocks of death. You never knew these things were so dangerous, did you? They haven't hurt us so far in this game, but these ones can't be trusted. So the idea is you can break these Cryonis blocks using Cryonis, and that's the reason why these first blocks, anyways, are shaped in the shape of squares. We have later ones that are various other icy shapes, but this is just to indicate the fact that you can use your Cryonis rune to break them in midair. So once you've successfully defended yourself against the ice cubes of death, then Sidon will take you over to one of the waterfalls in which Link will swim up. Now, this is great, however, as a comment, this does require that you're wearing the Zora Armor. So once you fly up into the air, you want to shoot 2 of these light bulbs with your shock arrows. Now, I think you can only shoot one of them at a time. I've always tried hitting multiple ones, but it never seems to work, so I don't think you can even do that. If somebody in the comments knows if that's even possible, then let me know. It seems like you should be able to do it, but I've never actually been successful with it, but I could just be not fast enough. Once you've successfully hit one of them, then you'll land back in the water, and Sidon will pick you back up to make another circuit around the area, and then he'll take you back to the waterfall once again, once you've just deflected more of the ice cubes. Now, just so you know, you can also break them with regular arrows. I know that some of you may have been thinking that you have to use shock arrows on the ice cubes as well. but that is not required at all. You can use regular arrows or Cryonis. I think Cryonis makes the most sense. I suppose, like, if you panic, I suppose, in particular, and you're trying to break these with Cryonis and it's not close enough or whatever, and then you're like, oh no, and you're waiting for it to recharge because you accidentally made a block in the water or something like that, then just quickly switch to your bow and shoot these things with regular arrows, and that would be one thing to do. So as a comment, you might want to try, like, preemptively changing your arrow type before, like, when you land on the water and you're riding on the side, you might change the arrow type to regular arrows just to be on the safe side so you're ready, so you're not, like, trying to shoot shock arrows and then have to switch arrow types in the middle of trying to defend yourself. You know, something else I've never tried, actually, I mean, I've tried hitting multiple of the thingies at a time, but I haven't tried actually landing on top of Vah Ruta before. I have flown over him, but I never actually tried landing on top of him. I bet you they probably not let you do that. Like, it's probably something that breaks it, or, like, get zapped with lasers or something, you know. Good old-fashioned boss lasers. I don't know why this is. I think maybe it's just partly the camera angles and stuff, but this battle always reminds me of the Twilight Bloat battle from Twilight Princess, with that bug thing when you're running around as a wolf. I don't know why it reminds me of that. I think maybe it's just the fact that we're fighting in a lake, I guess, but I always think of that with this, and, like, dodging. I think part of it too is because Twilight Bloat, like, runs towards you, and you have to, like, you're actually dodging him instead, as opposed to breaking all his projectiles. But for some reason, it just reminds me of this. Or yeah, this reminds me of that battle. So once you've smacked all of the light bulbs with shock arrows, this will cause Vah Ruta to stop spewing water everywhere, and these Zoras will be very happy. Apparently, the primary concern here is the fact that they were worried about this reservoir getting too full, and thus it would burst and then flood into Zora's domain and, like, swipe everybody away and destroy the whole town, which is sad. Now, one thing I think is weird is I'm not quite sure, like, what the scoop is with this. Hasn't Vah Ruta been doing this for over 100 years, and it's only filling up now? Like, that's one slow, like, trickle of water, apparently, that wasn't filling this up very fast. I'm not really sure why it's suddenly a big problem at this point. But yeah, so anyways, Vah Ruta's now stopped doing that, so it's okay. And this also gains us access to entering it in the first place.
Well, Link, here we are. Looks like this is where the real work starts. Best of luck. Nice job cutting off the water flow from this divine beast. Show the enemy no fear. I'll see you back at Zora's domain. Farewell. Finish the job.
Alright, so now at long last we finally have access to Vah Ruta, which is one of the 4 divine beasts in this game. So it's one of the main dungeons, and so you can do it right now, or you can save it for later. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to recommend that you stall and do it later, so that we can get some more armor. We're going to be upgrading our armor to be quite a bit stronger here in just a moment, and so as a result, it'll make this next section quite a bit easier. So you can do Vah Ruta if you want right now. I'd recommend at least that you upgrade your armor some, and then otherwise just have some good farming locations for good weapons. If you really want to make the boss easy, all you actually need is a whole bunch of arrows, and the best way to do that is to just get a bunch of rupees. Oh yeah. So if you want to make a bunch of money with me in the following video and get access to a bunch of upgrades for all of our armor, I will be showing you how to do that, and I'll be getting most of our armors up to rank 3, which is amazing, which is like almost as high as you can possibly get in this game, and we'll get there almost instantaneously, which is awesome. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So tackle Vah Ruta if you wish. I'm actually going to just nope on out of here. So one of the things that happens after you have gained access to Vah Ruta the first time is this will make it so that the area of Lanayru is no longer raining. Now what this does is it basically just makes it easier to get Korok Seeds, which is I'm sure exactly what you were expecting. Most of the other important things here don't really matter. We can get to all the shrines and stuff easily enough, and the rain does actually not matter for that at all. So we pretty much already have access to everything, and so the rain is kind of irrelevant for that. Now anyways, after you have gained access to Vah Ruta, the next thing I recommend you do is return to Zora's domain, and you can then speak with Laflat, who is over here at the right bridge, or the eastmost bridge. And if you got the quest from her earlier, well, I guess regardless if you got the quest from her, you want to toss her a picture of a Lynel that you have on your camera currently. I think that compendium pictures don't count. You have to have an actual picture on your camera. that hasn't been deleted yet. So you want to give her a picture of a Lynel. It doesn't have to be the one up on Polymus Mountain, just so you know. It can be any Lynel in the game. So once you toss that at her, then she will then thank you by gifting you with the Zora Greaves, which is the last piece of the Zora set. So we got all the 3 pieces in this particular video, which is awesome. So with that in our possession, we now have most of the highlights here in Zora's domain for now, although we will be returning later to get some more awesome things. But now we have all the armor, and so it's now finally time to go tackle dragons, which I will be showing you in the next video. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this and found it helpful, be sure to throw a like on it and subscribe for more content just like this. As always, you guys stay awesome, you have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.